I used to live like this, in squalor and filth, always trying to get over on people, scamming my way through situations.
Oh, wow.
This is the change I've been looking for.
Come on, Mac. Let's go get crippled.
Welcome to the Night Pod Cometh, where we talk about the legendary FXX show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I am Jamie G. Esquire, the fifth, the Cinco, master of negotiations. And I'm here with Magnum Mills and our guy, the Soupdeucer, to talk about Charlie Gets Crippled. Guys, how fun was it to go back to season 2, man?
I mean, this is way back into time, like
Yes.
Blackstreet style, sort of. I am Magnum Mills, and I am very happy to go back in time with y'all and to a time before the gang drank Coors Light. I am still drinking it here, but this is at the point where they were drinking like Heineken, Amstel Light, and just putting tape over the bottle. Really old school style. Shows you how long ago this episode was made. Doesn't matter because it's awesome, just like the Night Pod Cometh. Remember, you can find us wherever you get your pods. Just search for Night Pod Cometh. We're on social media at Night Pod Cometh. You can search for us on YouTube at Night Pod Cometh, or just go to joeblowfootballshow.com. Either way, you will get to the right place. When you get there, if you could, please like, comment, rate, follow, subscribe. Just do one of those things. Takes you less than 10 seconds. Helps people find the show. We greatly appreciate it. And, only if you enjoyed it, you have to enjoy it. That's the point. Soup, how you enjoying yourself tonight?
Enjoying pretty well, man. Enjoying pretty well. What's up, everybody? I am the Soup. I'm here again into the Night Pod Cometh, man, to hang out and talk about that. Tonight, I am eating fucking pasta and meatballs over here with a lot of fucking Parmesan cheese on it, man. I had Parmesan in my pocket, dude. I pulled it out and sprinkled it all over this fucking thing. I also got some wine, Merlot, I'm drinking to pair with my Parmesan pasta as we watch Charlie Gets Crippled.
You are incredibly lucky because our spaghetti policy is yes, please.
Yes, we have a very liberal spaghetti policy.
Yeah, our spaghetti policy is yes.
Yeah, not
Yes.
spaghetti. It's ziti sauce with Sicilian.
Whatever. For follow, you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Yes.
Out there in the universe, please be aware that this is a full spoiler show. So everything associated with Sunny, all episodes, podcasts, interviews, anything, they're in play here. And we'll probably get to them because that's how much we love Sunny. This is your first and final warning.
Let's do this thing.
This is season 2, episode 1, the 8th overall episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Charlie Gets Crippled. The original air date was June 29, 2006, and approximately 1.64 million people in the United States tuned in live to watch it. This episode was directed by Rob McElhenney. He's only directed 3 episodes of the show, and the other 2 were in season 1, so this is legitimately the most recent episode that he has directed. The story by credit here goes to Rob McElhenney, Charlie Day, and Gren Howerton, while Rob McElhenney gets sole credit for the teleplay. This is the first episode featuring Danny DeVito as Frank Reynolds. Other guest stars include Christopher Palawa as male employee, Natasha Leggero is stripper 1, Sarah Erickson is stripper 2, Tiffany Haddish is stripper 3, and Josh Fadham as Wayne. The short plot synopsis is: the gang discovers the perks of being handicapped when Charlie becomes wheelchair bound after an accident. Dennis and Dee's estranged father returns. Sounds like a soap opera breakdown.
It really does. And dude, before we get into this, shout out to Natasha Leggero and Tiffany Haddish. I mean, two kind of big names that turn into something here. Kind of cool to see them early on getting a little work in Sunny as strippers. So always cool. Guys, before we break this down, anything else about the episode that we should mention? Any notables, callbacks, etc., etc.?
This is a deal where Danny DeVito was basically only available for 20 days of shooting in season 2. So the production crew had to work on all 10 episodes of the season at once, which also, a lot of times meant shooting scenes from multiple episodes in the same day. And here we see Frank pretends that Charlie is his son at the strip club, and then later it becomes a running joke that Frank might actually be Charlie's father. And Charlie's war hero costume is based on famed Vietnam War protester and writer, the author of Born on the 4th of July. That's Ron Kovic. So based on a little bit of reality there. And I would say that, I know it's based on him, but Charlie's mustache did look a little bit like Mario from Super Mario Brothers. And yes, it's Mario from the Super Mario Brothers. His last name is Mario. his last name, like his name is Mario, and Luigi's name is Luigi Mario. That's fact.
That is fact. We don't have middle name yet, but we're working on it. We're going to go through the episode in full detail. But before we do, let's give our overall thoughts on this masterpiece. Charlie Gets Crippled. Mills, take a break and a drink. I got it. I'm going first here. This was so much fun to go back and watch. I just, so many good moments here. And it's interesting because this is kind of important. It's like the first introduction to Frank, right? And I thought they just nailed it. They set the tone early with the chugging, right? And that's always fun when you see people chugging beers. That's great on Always Sunny. But I love kind of Frank's first appearance as he just stands in front of the hood of the car, because at this point you don't really know what's coming here with the dad. So I thought it was really cool how they did it. And dude, this episode has kind of everything. They've refined over the years and gotten better and better and better, but you can tell, man, they had something special and they captured it. And this episode is kind of a perfect example of how good this show was and how badly it needed Frank.
Yeah, I think this was a great example of the show, like legitimately learning how to go in and out. Right when they hit Charlie, that's a perfect time to go to the title card. And then when they go out in the dude in the bed being like, oh, those people are assholes. That's it. That's the show kind of like that. That's what they couldn't quite get to, I think, in the first season. And I think honestly, adding the fifth person in the mix, obviously when it's Danny DeVito, that's like the most optimal possible fifth person. But think about Seinfeld. With four people, you kind of limit yourself a little bit. You have to keep bringing in like guest people to pair with them. When you get the fifth person, there's so many different things you can do as far as the storylines and the writing and everything. And again, Danny DeVito, again, really impressive for a show that maybe struggled to find itself a little bit in the first season and basically had to kill it to get renewed. And they had to sign Danny DeVito. They've said that. Like, that's the only reason they got season 2 is because they got Danny DeVito. They did it with this limited budget, and they're still going, almost 20 years later because, yeah, it's pretty good. Soup, thoughts on just overall thoughts on Charlie Gets Crippled?
Yeah. Without repeating anything that you said, man. I mean, it was fucking awesome, dude. It was a really, really good episode overall anyway. But yeah, it was also a gateway episode. And I think barriers were crossed there that were needed to be crossed, dude. So much so that I need to add more fucking cheese because it is a cheese-worthy fucking episode. So I'm going more cheese, my pasta here, and cheers to a great fucking Sunny episode, man. Let's break it down, dude.
Parmesan cheers, dude.
Parmesan cheers.
It's always cheesy on Soup Spaghetti.
You know my cheese. All right, I guess it's time to do the episode. And I'll set it up here. It's 10:15 on a Monday. Charlie, Mac, and Dennis are having a beer chugging contest before heading out to the strip club. Dee comes in hot and warns Dennis that their father is looking for them. They decide to take off before he can get there. They get into Dennis's Range Rover, but Charlie decides to head home because nobody will give him money. Dennis looks up and sees his father, and he panics. He puts the Range Rover in reverse in an attempt to get away and hits Charlie with his car. Cut to the opening title. Dennis, you son of a bitch! I mean, I thought he was a bastard man, but just perfect, right? Like that's, again, I think immediately, 8th episode, whatever, that's the best, cut to the title card they've done.
Great.
Yes. And the fact that they're really chugging beer, that's cool. I mean, that's real beer in there. There's no faking that. And, and I think that this just shows, they're so young here because we're used to seeing kind of them older. Even back then, they kind of nailed acting drunk, and all of them do it in their own way. So I thought this was great. Incorporates all four. We see, with Dee coming in, and it also right away sets the stage for like, okay, well, who the hell is the father, and why are they freaked out? So it kind of hooks you right away.
Yeah, if I had known that Danny DeVito was like on the show like that, I would have thought he was probably just a guest star. And there's just a little good shit here. Like when they're going to leave, Charlie tries to take the half drunk picture of beer with him in the car because then you find out he doesn't have any money. And then no one will give him $20. And Charlie, let's be honest, man, $20 even back in 2006 was not going to get you very far at the strip club. And really, what is Dee going to do with her money at the strip club? I'm just asking. Something, right? I mean, otherwise, why not give it to Charlie?
I mean, drinks are expensive in the strip club, dude.
No, there's a cover. Usually there's a cover. And that brings us to the hospital where Dee and Dennis yell at their father, Frank, for showing up like that. Frank shocks them by saying that their mother is dead. As Dee and Dennis take in the news, Frank tells them that he's just kidding, but they are getting a divorce. Dee and Dennis are horrified, but it only gets worse from there. Frank wants to give away all of his money and hang out with them. Dennis and Dee yell a little bit more before storming away. The camera pans to show Charlie and Max sitting there, watching the entire thing.
Well, that was awkward.
Yes, it was.
I love my parents when they were like, yeah, we're giving away anything you might ever give from us, and also we're coming to live with you. That feels like pressure.
Yeah, that definitely feels like pressure. I love that they already set the stage here of like Frank is going to be this like really sophisticated kind of cutthroat businessman, and he uses the great technique here.
Why? What? Why would you say that she's dead?
That's a business tactic. You drop the bomb, then you soften the blow. You never tried this?
So I thought that was a great technique, and I love that the show, I mean, right the first time you get Frank, he's already kind of playing that role. So I thought that was cool. They build on that, throughout his run.
Yeah, it could be the new sandwich, could be the cob assault, same kind of thing here. My main thing is like, were Dee and Dennis more upset about their mom dying, or that Frank was going to give away his money to poor people? Because it seemed to be pretty close to me.
Yeah, I think I'm edging out on giving away the money. I think that's once they realize what that means, that
was definitely Dee's like, she's just like, but the money.
You can't just waltz back into our lives and be our dad again.
And the money.
It doesn't work that way. You can't just barge in.
And the money.
And the money. My God, Dad. All of our money?
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think they were more upset about the money factor. I think they were probably a little more. No, I think they were equally shocked, but more upset about the money thing.
When Frank just tells Dennis,
Your mother is a dirty, dirty whore.
Oh, God damn it, Dad.
that's probably the most like the Frank Reynolds we're familiar with. The way he says whore fits right there. Overall, I think it is kind of fun. They do a good job of kind of setting up like how he became like this kind of like actual like legitimate type businessman and why he would want to get away from it. It's kind of funny to see him here like this, right? Like with a regular haircut, regular clothes. It's like kind of like a yuppie, management type white dude or whatever. And let's be honest here. Dennis tells him, you don't snoop and sneak and appear in front of cars and start yelling names. Dude, that's exactly something that Dennis Reynolds would fucking do. But I'm pretty sure he's done.
Oh, he definitely has done it. He's definitely has done it for sure.
And I mean, they're sitting there in the hospital and Frank looks very sad. So Mac invites him to join him and Charlie at the strip club. When they get there, Charlie tells Frank that they're going to get hammered, and the stripper offers Charlie a free lap dance because he's in a wheelchair. He accepts, and when a second stripper comes over, Charlie says, hey, can you hook my guy up with a dance here? He's had a bad day. Frank initially doesn't want the lap dance, but after hesitating, he says,
Well, maybe just one.
and I mean, there's just some great lines here. You saw Dennis and Dee do it kind of, and then Mac and Charlie do it here. When they're, Frank's like giving his money away, and Mac's like,
So when you say you're giving your money away to poor people, do you mean like Mexico poor, or can it be like me and Charlie poor?
I thought that was just great, especially because later on we'll get an episode titled Mac and Charlie White Trash. Just interesting. And just the stripper coming over. It's probably a little bit true to life. Just like, oh, you poor baby, what happened? And Charlie's like,
My best friend ran me over with his car. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Do you want a lap dance?
strip club sympathy isn't very real, but that's like in the wheelhouse of that tiny 1% where you might get a little actual sympathy.
Well, I love Charlie talking to Frank about how they're going to tie one on, and gear up here for 6 or 7, then we're going to head downtown and really
They're doing kamikazes and like they're ready, like they're
he's ready to get totally hammered. So I thought that was great.
And we do come back to the strip club over the years. One of my favorites is when they bring the lawyer there, and then they bring like the councilman who's gay or whatever. It's just
yes.
You don't get a ton of the strip club, like it does disappear after a while, but it's I think a fun location here for what it's worth.
Hey man, that's the spirit that beat the Japanese.
Yeah, I guess you get your wars crossed a little bit here. And Dennis and Dee aren't at war with themselves as much as with each other, because they're both so disgusted by the thought of Frank giving their money away to poor people that they both decide to go back to their childhood home and take as much shit as possible. Dennis torments Dee for having a smaller car and not being as strong as him. He graciously allows her to take whatever her feeble arms can carry. They set up, earlier they set up that Dennis's mom was out of the country or whatever, but I don't know, man, it was just a little bit too far by Dennis. Like, I mean, he really wanted Dee kind of.
Yeah, maybe a little bit over the. I think it's kind of standard for what you expect out of those two with whatever kind of argument or whatever it might be. But yeah, it might be breaking shit. That's excessive because there's no coming back from that. So that might have been a little over the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. I mean, Dennis does get the good line when he's like,
I'm going to take all the stuff that I want, load it into my enormous SUV, and you can grab some trinkets or whatever and throw it in your tiny little car.
that tracks with both his pride of the Range Rover and like Dee always having like shitty cars. But yeah, dude, Dennis's first shit, plasma TV in a fish tank. Like, remember when plasma TVs were like a thing?
Yeah. Boy.
Good picture, but not a long life.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I never had one. So
try dodge that bullet, man. And speaking of dodging bullets, Frank seems to be feeling better because next time we see him, he's officiating a race between Charlie and Mac and two strippers in the hallway of Charlie's apartment building. Eventually, they go into Charlie's apartment, and Frank gets cozy with the strippers, while Charlie and Mac argue over which one of them should leave. Frank kicks them out into the hallway because they're killing the vibe, and they decide to flip a coin about who should leave. When they try to enter the apartment to find a coin from Frank, they find the door is locked. Frank eventually answers the door and tells them that they need to give him about 45 minutes. He also gives Charlie $5, tells him to get some sodas from the Wawa. He's going to be pretty thirsty after this. I mean, honestly, right now, can either one of y'all get a coin to flip within a minute? Like if I said you need to flip a physical coin.
shit. Yeah, I could probably in a minute. Yeah, I probably could, man. I got a change jar right up in there, man. So
I feel like I have a couple, like I have change in my car.
It would take me a little bit to get a coin.
Like you just don't carry coins like that anymore, right? Like you just don't have like flipping a coin. If you were to ask me to flip a coin, I use the app on my phone.
well, if I had on regular pants other than my loungers, because I've been like home all day just doing nothing, but if it was like out and about day and I had on like pants with pockets and shit, I probably would have a coin because I always end up with a pocket full of fucking change somehow, you know. That's why I started keeping the change jar. Instead of they fall out of my pockets, I throw them in there and, you know, it adds up.
Oh, I remember cashing in the change jar back in the day. Like that would be kill. Like I just don't get, I use cards so much. My change jar is nearly not what it used to be.
Yeah, I just don't carry cash anymore.
Yeah,
so
see,
I
I'm
don't.
still a guy that uses cash. I like
Should have cash. Should have some cash at least. I mean, any kind of thoughts on Frank here? Because he is like pimping hard, right? Like he walks in, you do gotta like the exchange where he's like, Charlie, got any booze in here? So like, yeah, check under the bed or under one of my pillows. That's a nice kind of early reference where they eventually stash liquor everywhere at the bar and everything like that. So Charlie has booze, but it's not even like in a cabinet or under the sink even, or in the bathroom. No, it's under the pillow, under the bed. You know, that's a good one. And we get the first story here when Mac's trying to talk to Charlie and he starts slowly rolling away. And that becomes a runner throughout the episode where people are trying to like talk to them and they get uncomfortable. So they just roll away backwards.
First of all, the race was incredible.
When they get to the end and Mac's mad because Charlie and he just tosses that girl. That should have been nominated for like stunt of the year or something because that was wild, dude.
Well, not only does he do that, but then he adds, fuel to the flame, and he's like, "She's a heavy one." He just couldn't stand to lose, man. Mac's so competitive, but I thought the race was great, and I actually thought it was shot. McElhenney doesn't direct a lot, but I actually thought that the way that was filmed was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's part of it's always, a fun one just to look around and everything like that. Frank's already pimping right when they first get in there. They go out, they talk for like 90 seconds. Frank opens the door again. The strippers have already taken off their shirts and they're having a pillow fight. Like Frank Reynolds got game, right?
Yes, he does. For a guy who just, cured himself of being manic depressed, he's doing pretty well, living his best life here.
It's easier to do when you got fuck tons of money,
Yeah, and a study came out recently that said people who have more money are less prone to depression.
Oh, no,
No shit. And back at Patty's, Dennis and Dee might not be depressed, but they're definitely having issues because they've divided the bar into two halves with a line of tape. They're dividing up the stuff from the house, most of which is on Dennis's side. Dennis breaks a lamp that was Dee's, and she retaliates by ripping the head off of his favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Tibbs, an elephant. Before things can go any further, Mac enters the bar in a wheelchair. He proposes that Dennis gets a wheelchair of his own, and they try to find some new talent at the mall. They have been looking for a new angle. Despite Dee's protest, Dennis agrees. Did you like the runner kind of with the stuffed animal here? Like the idea that, Dee, like that's kind of like fucked up a little bit, right? Like Dennis just wanted like fish tanks and TVs, and Dee's like, oh, you do that, I'm going to get the one thing that matters to you and rip its head off.
I think Dennis did it by breaking the lamp, though.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of.
Yeah, it was in retaliation, but I mean, really, it's a lamp. I don't know. Like, I feel like a stuffed animal was something you'd have more connection to than a lamp.
More sentimental
Probably,
value.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not Brick Tamlin, though. I mean, I love Lamp. He loves Lamp, at least.
Yeah, I thought it just kind of tracks well throughout how when they fight each other, man, they can just be cutthroat.
Oh, yeah, they can cut each other deeper than anyone else, and that should be right, like, because they're twins and everything. I
love Howerton here. As soon as she rips the head off and like he pretends not to care, but then he just turns away from her and he just takes this, and you could tell it's like, oh man, that really affected him there. I thought that was great. Another good shot too by Beckline.
Probably took a second too long, but we should also acknowledge that like faking a disability or a handicap or any like that's totally not cool. Don't do that. Right. Very bad. Don't do that. Sorry it took us that long to acknowledge it, but very bad.
Yeah, goes without saying.
You would think, but this day and age, I mean, you have to be sure, Mac's loving it. He says,
people give you free shit and women treat you like a puppy they just found out on the street.
And you do see in the background, like Dennis's big ass flat screen TV, and it's kind of like one of those old Sony Trinitrons or whatever that probably weighed like 85 pounds or something crazy. So shout out old school, huge televisions, and shout out Frank Reynolds, because he had himself a night. Because by the time he finally comes out of the apartment, it's day, morning, whatever. Charlie is asleep in the hallway in his wheelchair. Mac is nowhere to be found. And Frank tells Charlie that last night was one of the greatest nights of his life. And he wants to live like that. And he wants to live with Charlie. After a bit of haggling, Frank agrees to pay Charlie's rent for 6 months. Now it's time for them to head back to the strip club. A lot of strip club in this episode.
There is, but I love this too. I love the negotiation here. Again, you kind of get Frank in all his glory with his business negotiations. And I love how he does this, man.
I'll pay for your rent for 6 months.
12.
6.
10.
6.
9.
6.
10.
6.
12.
4.
6.
Deal.
At one point, there was 12s in the mix. Then they went down to 4, and they settle on 6, which is what he wanted the whole time. Just great negotiation.
A side of the show kind of dialing Charlie back. It's not quite Homer Simpson on The Simpsons, the way they made him dumber, but the show definitely makes Charlie a little bit dumber than he was in season 1 going forward. And that's a little bit of it here with like, that's Bugs Bunny. That's 100% like that negotiation thing. That's Bugs Bunny. Nothing wrong with it, but it's, and I like the idea that Frank Reynolds is Bugs Bunny, actually.
I'm not sure I'm following the Bugs Bunny reference, but
the negotiation thing, it happened in like Bugs Bunny cartoons. Like they would used to do like a rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, duck season, right? Like that kind of like when you just flip it up on him, because that's what Frank does. They keep doing the same thing. So then as soon as Frank moves off of 6, Charlie goes to 6. Deal.
Worked well.
Yes. Everything in the hallway sequence was just, All
right. No more sleeping on the hall, though.
I can't promise that.
You can't promise it to him, dude. He can't.
Can't guarantee that, man.
Sleeping in the hallway, definitely not the greatest. And you get the idea, because remember, Frank told Charlie to get him some sodas. If you look, like actually at the wheelchair, there's a bunch of empty soda cans. So you get the idea that Charlie even came back with the sodas. Somehow this dude in a wheelchair went to Wawa, got the sodas, came back, and Frank still let him down. So then he drank the sodas and everything. Just great. And then when Frank tries to wheel him back in to get ready for the strip club, he just bangs Charlie's broken legs into the door. Great physical comedy in every level.
Some of my favorite pairings are Frank and Charlie. And this kind of, I think they realize like, hey, we got something here.
This is their origin story. Yeah, this is basically
Right.
the origin story of Frank and Charlie, and they click so quickly that it's amazing. Mac and Dennis are trying to see if they can quickly adjust to picking up chicks in wheelchairs. So they're at the mall, they're both in wheelchairs, so they're discussing their backstories. Mac doesn't really have one, while Dennis has an elaborate story about having polio. Mac quickly decides that he has polio too. They soon learn that Dee is beating them to the punch and she's faking a disability herself. Disgusted, Mac and Dennis head towards the Crate and Barrel in search of some cougars. Another guy in a wheelchair spots them, an actual handicapped person. Dennis tells Mac to be cool, but Mac blows it by immediately blurting out, "I have polio," as soon as the guy rolls up to them. Real wheelchair dude seems very skeptical, and eventually Mac and Dennis slowly wheel back away from him.
They just nail this. The amount of tension and awkwardness, it's so over the top, but it's so hilarious here. And yeah, it just works great. You got, shout out to Dennis with like his vanity knows no bounds. He's worried about how muscular his legs are, so he throws that little blanket over him just to make sure that it looks like he's got polio here. They can't see how amazing and godlike his legs are, So just hilarious, dude. I love the awkwardness between this, this exchange between the three of them.
Oh, and just think about the idea when they go and they look and they see Dee, and she kind of gives them the look because she gave the high and mighty speech, like, I would never do that or whatever. And they don't reference it here. I don't, that's cards on the table. I don't 100% remember if they reference Dee being the aluminum monster in season 1. I feel like there's some mention of a back brace or something here. This isn't the same back brace we see later, but I'm kind of like, that was my assumption, was this was like her back brace. So I guess, again, never fake a disability or whatever, but theoretically, I guess she's like, if she was pretending to have a disability she previously had, that wouldn't be quite as bad or whatever. It's all love. I mean, again, here we are in Sunny. Like, we're gonna have to rank these people eventually. There's different levels of bad here, but the idea that she was kind of holier than thou against Dennis and Mac, and then beats them to the punch, I thought was really funny.
Yeah, and she crushes, and Caitlin Olsen's so great with the physical.
And that's a very poorly designed hat rack, right? Like, who puts hats up that high? You need like one of them rolling ladder things, like in a bookstore, to get to those hats. No actual person could get to that hat.
Yeah, you gotta ask the clerk for help on that.
Yeah, and then they have like a crutch like that.
Sign up or something. Yeah, they have the hook thing. They come up with fucking, whatever the fuck.
And shout out like the dude who was just playing like the person in the wheelchair. Just the look on his face with the polio thing. It was like just solid face acting. I love that. For a guy, sorry to make it scale or something like that. Just great. And Dennis with the whole FDR thing. I get it. I almost think it's kind of a thing because the Howerton actually said on the podcast, like during season 2, he was doing the master cleanse or whatever. So he was like really thin and shit. So doesn't actually surprise me that he wanted to like it.
I love this reasoning though, right? It's like his vanity knows no bounds, man. It's like he's got those huge muscular legs, dude. No one's gonna buy that. I mean, like, give him credit for thinking through that much.
I mean, that is perfect Dennis Reynolds Golden God logic. So there is no arguing with that. And when Frank and Charlie are on their way back to the strip club, they're wheeling the wheelchair down the street, and Charlie sees a window display that inspires him. He's got a costume there. Frank agrees to buy Charlie what he wants, and they roll into the strip club with Charlie dressed as a disabled Vietnam vet. Charlie quickly takes it too far, but Frank takes advantage by claiming that Charlie is his crippled veteran son. This gains him plenty of sympathy from the ladies. And again, faking handicaps is bad. Stolen valor also equally, all very, very bad. Don't do it. Just very bad.
Yeah.
But that being said, how funny is Charlie here?
Oh, look at you, sweetie. What happened?
You goddamn knows what happened! Go get me a beer, bitch!
Bad karma for shit like that, man. You get the bad.
You can't do it. But I mean, Charlie, like again with the Mario mustache. I mean, just the the line, and even the exchange on the street between Frank and Charlie, where, you know,
Who gets more respect and admiration in this country than war heroes?
Athletes.
Yeah, that's true. But after that,
Rock stars.
yeah, also true. But after that, Frank.
Actors.
Yeah, right.
Models.
Yes. Look.
Rich
Look.
people.
Okay. Look.
I mean, hysterical though, right? And Frank with Charlie in the corner, like the little box or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, you
put him in
can't
the
box him in,
box.
dude.
Can't box
He had
him
some
in.
serious Lieutenant Dan going on here too. That's the one thing that I thought of too. He had a little bit of Lieutenant
yeah,
Dan.
100% Lieutenant. I'm guessing that's a little bit of what they were going for. Charlie didn't fight no damn war, said he could be boxed in by some square commie ass piece of shit. Mac and Dennis are headed towards a crate and barrel, and they feel kind of bad, and they argue about who ruined their scheme. They decide that there's only one way to settle this, with a wheelchair race. Dennis eventually wins, but Mac thinks he cheated, and the two begin to fight. We see that the real wheelchair guy from earlier is looking on from the second floor very disapprovingly. Dee approaches him and asks what's going on. He says,
What's going on down there?
Those two guys are pretending to be disabled and kicking each other's asses.
Oh. What a bunch of scumbags.
and slowly leaves, continuing to fake her disability.
Her walk is incredible here, dude. Like, she nails it. The
Her
physical
legs are
comp-
dead. Like,
always
they're
been
like
great
the,
at. This kind of the early stages of her, but she absolutely crushes throughout the whole episode with her disabled walk.
her
It's
physical comedy's off the charts.
She did a great job on that one, man.
And again, like a little bit kind of Seinfeldian here. You like how they bring the kind of the plot lines at them all together. Like you got the thing with Dee, and then they bring it back here, and then you kind of bring it back around in the end. I feel again, just probably them getting in the groove or figuring out how to write these episodes. But I think it's especially impressive that they added kind of the fifth main character in this episode, and it still feels like probably the most tightly written of the 8 episodes they've done so far. And you have to be careful, dude, because if you're faking being a crippled person and you meet an actual crippled person, it can bring you down.
If you're any bit of a fucking human being, I'm sure it would. I mean,
It should. It should. I mean, whatever, dude. Crippled, disabled, I don't care, man. It should. And it's kind of funny when they're doing the race. Like Mac looks like a regular dude who's in a wheelchair, right? Like he doesn't even pretend to do anything. And then when they're doing the race, remember when he's doing the race with Charlie and Charlie reached out with the arm? Mac actually tries to do the same exact thing to Dennis and then gets pissed off when he loses anyways. I just thought that was a really nice touch.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I think the entire fight scene down there in the mall was pretty good, dude. I mean, it was obviously fucking ridiculous and over the top, but that's what you would expect out of this, man. You know, I mean, where did you think this was going to go? Obviously, this wasn't going to work out for them, so it had to end somewhere.
I mean, it really does. And eventually, Mac and Dennis have to give up on faking disabilities. They head back to Patty's. They're going to go in the back and they encounter Charlie out there dressed like the vet still. And he's out there because Frank has once again locked him out of the apartment. But Charlie's not giving up. He just couldn't get over it. Like, there was no ramp to get into the back door. So he turns around. He says, fuck it. He's headed back to the strip club. When he gets there, he tries to dial it down a notch. But he quickly discovers that Frank isn't in his apartment anymore. Frank is back at the strip club. And this time he's come armed with a mobility scooter and a shitload of money. Charlie has had enough and he attacks Frank, trying to expose him as a walker. He does legitimately call Frank a walker. And it comes up a couple times in this episode that like people faking disabilities are walkers. I just thought that was kind of ironically funny.
Yeah.
I mean, and the whole mobility scooter thing. I mean, in just the chemistry between Charlie Day and Danny DeVito here is just incredible. Like Frank faking having like the thing you got to blow in to move your, the whatever, and
Right.
I can just do it with my fingers. Like that is almost the most Frank Reynolds he feels in the whole episode, as far as future Frank.
Definitely, dude. Like the fact he's like, but they don't know that. It's great.
Also, the idea that Frank's like,
The other thing I figured out is the only thing that attracts attention in strippers more than pity is money. And I brought a shitload of that.
like the Frank Reynolds we know and love had already figured out that strippers love money. I mean, that's not exactly like discovering electricity or something, right?
No, but it's kind of cute to see Frank like so far removed from being Frank that he still was learning things. I mean, it was kind of interesting to see the early on Frank.
Yeah, and Charlie's on the end of like 2 good jokes. The first one is when he's fighting with Frank. He's like,
It's like the best thing that ever happened to me. You're ruining it.
I don't know if I have the greatest life, but the idea if I broke 2 legs, that should not be the greatest thing that ever happened to me. So that's pretty fucked up on one level. And I just like the gag. Charlie's trying to talk to Frank, and Frank's like, "Oh, it's my buddy Charlie," and all the girls are like, "Hi, Charlie." Like that was definitely a Charlie's Angels thing, 100%. It was a really kind of random gag, but I enjoyed that. Some people really haven't enjoyed this episode so far, like Dennis and Mac. They're back at Patty's, just getting fucking hammered. They're drinking Red Stripes. They're doing shots. They're drinking Heinekens, Amstel Lights. They're getting hammered. And Dennis is talking about all his regrets about this person in his family, who you would assume is his father. But nah, it's not. It's Mr. Tibbs, his stuffed whatnot. Mac has had enough. He declares that they're headed back to the strip club. Dennis is driving. Dee is actually walking past the strip club with the guy from the mall, the dude we saw working in the store, when she sees Frank and Charlie get kicked out. Frank and Charlie continue their wheelchair fight out into the street, and Frank knocks Charlie out of the wheelchair, and then he snatches Dee's crutches and calls her out as a walker. They continue to argue while the guy that Dee was with asks if they're all faking their handicaps. Suddenly, the Range Rover pulls up, and it looks like it's going to hit Frank and Dee. We cut to black, and then we're in the hospital, where everybody in the game now has real injuries of their own. Frank offers to buy them ice cream, and as they leave, he comments on how lucky they are that no one important was seriously injured. Then the camera pans over, and we see the guy who Dee was with lying in a hospital bed with serious injuries, and he says,
"What a bunch of assholes."
Perfect way to bring this thing home, wasn't it? I mean, this was the best kind of
again, the in and the out. Like this is kind of where they figured it out, like the note you go in on and out on, like that anytime a regular human being encounters the gang, they just suffer from it.
Yeah. And I thought it was great to see kind of Frank on the the motorized wheelchair, just kind of bum rushing Charlie, getting him out of it, and then he just starts kicking him when he's down. I just thought that was hilarious, dude. Frank just gets up and starts kicking Charlie. One of the better parts of the episode for me.
Oh, and great. We call it the drunk acting before when Howerton's like he calls it a drunk element instead of a drunk elephant. That whole exchange is just great. And then Mac is just like strip club. Like it's like a safe word almost. He's just like strip club, strip club.
Well, it's so funny because you don't know, you're thinking he's talking about the dad, right? And you don't know until Mac finally breaks down and he's like, if I have to listen to you talk for one more minute about a stuffed animal, and then he realized that's what he was talking about. It's just so funny, dude. Like I love that they brought that back because it was so impactful for Howerton, for Dennis when she ripped off the head and he turned away from the camera. I love that they brought that back where he's like, drowning his sorrows talking about his stuffed animal.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where Mac's like, you drive? When do we see Mac drive? I mean, very rarely. It's happened. I know he stole Frank Sandy and Storm of the Century, but off the top of my head, like I know he must. Like he goes to the gym, he does up.
Charlie and Mac get killed is when Charlie and Mac die. He's driving in that episode.
No, driving the car because he thinks he's going to bail out before they hit the wall.
Right.
Like he drives down the alley. So he does drive, but not often. I mean, you would just assume Dennis was going to drive, right? And just shout out the strip club is Dahlia's Den or Delia's Den. It's like the number one strip club in Philly, or at least has been, or the most well known is Delilah's. So I think that was a deliberate thing there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not as many tables. Like there were a lot of tables at the strip club they went to. It seemed like more like a restaurant with a stage, like a Canadian ballet.
Canadian ballet, dude. I used to be pretty familiar with that. I would frequent those places back in my younger years. Good times up there, man. I'm not going to go into the details.
I love Dee here too, where she's just like, "Hey, Dad, why are you beating up a homeless person?" I just love. So it's like they really kind of hammer in the fact that Charlie looks like a homeless person when he's dressed up like that. So that was funny.
Oh, hey, yes, very.
A bunch
good.
of the little storylines kind of come full circle and come back a couple times, which I thought they did a great job in this episode of kind of honing that in.
Hondo over Hondo.
All right, well, shit, man, that was Charlie Gets Crippled. And before we hand out our awards for this episode, let's look at what other people thought about it.
This episode has a rating of 8.5 on IMDb, which puts it in a 17-way tie for 59th overall amongst all Sunny episodes. Let's call it this way. Put it roughly in the top 1/3, the top 33% of Sunny episodes. Does that seem about right to you, Jamie G? This is in the top third, the top 33% of Sunny episodes.
I think so, man. And I think it's, it's an important episode because it was kind of their first kind of attempt at blending in the fifth character, the member of the gang, and Frank, right? And I thought I don't know that they could have did a better job.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that. I mean, technically, this episode had a lot to do with, again, introducing Frank. You're doing a fake handicap thing. You got Charlie doing a Vietnam vet thing. You have multiple storylines coming together. Yeah, I think in the top third. I think that's totally fair. I don't know if I can put it in my top, 20% or so. Top third, definitely. What do you think, Soup? This is like a top 33%, top third episode of Sunny?
I think that sounds fair, dude, because a major thing about this episode is the introduction of the fifth member. And this isn't just a reoccurring character. It's not like Rickety Cricket or the waitress here. We're talking about Frank Reynolds, man. A major fucking character. Going to be in it for the rest of the fucking thing, probably, So turns into a major player, man. So you take the introduction of him away. Let's say he's even in it, but it's not his first episode. If this episode, like the actual structure of it and the story behind it, in an episode where it maybe was Frank Reynolds, not his first one, anything else but the first one. You take that factor away, is it that good of an episode still? I think it's still a pretty solid episode, and I still put it up there into the third category, man.
Great point, man.
Faking disabilities and swapping strippers is always a good time.
Yeah.
Again, don't fake disabilities.
Yeah,
in wheelchair races. I mean, come on, man. That's cool too.
You can do that if you're not pretending to be disabled. Wheelchair,
or do it, but just don't pretend to be disabled. Just be like, we just want to race in wheelchairs because we think it looks cool. Just don't pretend to be disabled. That's fine.
Hey man, people do the three-legged races, man. Doesn't mean you got three fucking legs.
You don't have to have three legs.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're always trying to get new people to watch the show. And so we debate about the best episodes, kind of gateway episodes, if you will, to watch for somebody who's never seen an episode of Sunny. And let's be honest here, this one's probably, it's got to be one of the best possible episodes to show kind of a Sunny virgin, right? I mean, they get the introduction of Frank, they kind of get the gang, it kind of dates back to where it all kind of starts, the origin story of Frank kind of joining the show. I mean, I think this one makes a lot of sense.
Dude, as far as a first episode ever to see of Sunny, if you had never seen Sunny, this probably is one of the top episodes for a Sunny version to check out. It gives you a good idea of what the show is all about, man. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because especially if you figure at this point, 90% of the show has Frank Reynolds in it. Maybe, probably more like 92.5 or whatever. So the season one is not bad. I rewatch it. It's fine. There's a couple times where you kind of get the idea, they're kind of hitting it. But realistically, you could tell. I would rather tell someone to start here than any episode of season one, I would say. And yeah, probably a top 5 entry episode. Because here it is. Here's Frank, boom. And we always feel that Sunny is very well written, but we do have some fun giving alternate titles for the episodes. Jamie G, how about you lead us off here? Give an alternate title for Charlie Gets Crippled.
I had a couple that I thought were fun. So I liked Dennis runs over Charlie. I liked Charlie wins the stripper race. I thought that would have been fun. But then Frank has a threesome, I think would be really cool. We didn't know Frank the character, so it would kind of have some intrigue there. But any of those three I would be down with.
I'm with you there. I got 2 pretty good ones. I will go with Mac and Dennis pretend to have polio. I think that would have just kind of gotten me in. And Charlie looks like a homeless person. Both are fun. Soup, you got an alt title?
Dude, those are all really good. And once again, I failed to think about coming up with the title ahead of time, and going off of what you guys said right there, pretty good. Fuck, man, no, because I want it to be the one that'll fit the scheme of Sunny. I could say liquor and strippers might be a cool one, but would it be a
Frank Reynolds, liquor and strippers? Just you put the colon. Colon's got to do some work, but the colon can do.
What
work.
about my colon?
Or semicolon? It depends.
Liquor and strippers. That's the best I got, man.
I think I'm actually there for that, and that's actually very apt because one last thing before we get to our awards, I need y'all to just tell me something funny that you witnessed at a strip club. Doesn't have to be a long story. It could be if you got a good one, and it could just be allegedly. It doesn't necessarily had to have happened. Jamie G, have you any strip club tales?
I've never been to one in my entire life.
Have you
Jamie G,
heard of any? Like, has someone like told you third, fourth hand anything?
Nothing that could be repeated.
Oh wow! So that's a kind of a vow. I have actually a fairly good one, and I was on a birthday, and people were determined to take me to the strip club, not because I wanted to go on my birthday, but because they really wanted to go. Right, so they brought me, and basically there was a rule. Sometimes there's a constraint, and I told my one buddy, if we're going to go, the deal has to be you can only speak in Lil Jon for the night, which is very specific. That means he could say three things. He could say what, he could say yeah, and he could say okay. And he was not allowed to say anything else, or we left. This was very fun. And some of the girls would get very frustrated, and this was very fun to just, you can go to the strip club, but you can only say what, yeah, and okay. But you can't actually really get a dance unless you had money. You really have money for that. So it was fun. I enjoyed that one. Soup, anything? You ever see somebody Ralph on a strip club hot dog or what?
Nah, and not so much like that, man. But I do have some pretty good strip club memories, man. I spent my younger years, crossing the border into Canada when I was about 18, because there was no fucking drinking age. Well, it was 18 over there, it was 21 over here. Close enough to where I could go over there, and what we would do, we would go to a fucking strip club, of course, man. They had some good ones over there. They call it the Canadian fucking ballet, dude. Rightfully so. Other than just random fucking good times at the strip clubs, man. No, I don't have any excessive stories, but I'll never forget the first time I ever went to one. I was super young, and it was the first time, and I wasn't knowing what to expect. I knew what a titty bar was and shit like that. But when this fucking stripper came over to me, man, and just opened her fucking right in front of my fucking face, dude, because they're hardcore like that up there, I was like, fuck, this is some real deal shit, So I was kind of blown away, and then kind of intrigued for a while. And then I realized, hey, man, you know what? This whole strip club thing's a waste of money, dude. Unless you just want to look at fucking chicks all day and spend a whole bunch of money, man. If you like, the chances of hooking up with a stripper are really fucking slim. You got to have a lot of money and a lot of fucking cocaine if you're even trying to do something like that. You're probably not going to do that unless you're rolling like that. So you're better off just getting a fucking hooker. Just order a fucking hooker, man. Or just go out to the strip club with a bunch of buddies because it's a bachelor party and it's a good time and you get good fucking company. Whatever the fuck you want to do. But
all of those are really good. Jamie G, let me ask you this. Rank the three. Table dance, couch dance, lap dance.
Okay, so I would say lap dance the best, couch dance the second, table dance the third.
Interesting, because the table dance is the way that you can show off most of the other people. Like, oh, look at how kill I am. And if you're really going to show off to people at the strip club, don't do it by getting hammered beforehand, eat a bunch of hot dogs. I definitely saw this happen before where a real hammered dude went into a strip club. They have the roller hot dogs, like stadium style, but they've probably been on there for a couple of days. Dude ate like 3 hot dogs and right on a stripper, and yeah.
Yikes.
It was funny. I'd have to drive him home, so that's why it was funny.
All right. Well, guys, that brings us to the awards portion of the program. Let's start with our favorite quote or piece of dialogue from Charlie Gets Crippled. Guys, I'm going to go first here. And look, I got to give it up for when Charlie's really wanting to pursue the war costume for the strip club. And he, when he asked Frank,
who gets more respect and admiration in this country than war heroes?
Athletes.
Yeah, that's true. But after that?
Rock stars.
Yeah, also true. But after that, Frank?
Actors.
Yeah, right.
Models.
Yes. Look.
Rich people.
Look, okay, look.
And it just kind of speaks to the point. So that little exchange there was my favorite.
Oh, that's a very good one. And most of my favorite, again, a lot of favorite parts of this episode, but the Charlie and Frank stuff is definitely up there. So let me just go with just one that just pure Charlie. And it's when he goes back to the strip club for his, his Bob Marley, his redemption song. And he's rolling in there. He's doing all right. And the one stripper's like,
oh, look at you, sweetie. What happened?
You goddamn knobs, what happened? Go get me a beer, bitch!
Soup, favorite line, anything like that? Favorite dialogue, favorite joke?
Kind of hard to pick a favorite on this one, man.
I don't take advantage of people.
Look at Sweetie sitting on her cloud of judgment, handing down life lessons to all the sinners.
Come on, Mac. Let's go get crippled.
That's actually
Absolute classic.
That brings us to our favorite scene or moment from Charlie Gets Crippled. I'm going to go first here, and this is easy for me. You could pick that scene kind of reference with Frank and Charlie on the street, but I'm just going to go with the scene of Frank and Charlie in the hallway of Charlie's apartment building when Frank comes out after Charlie slept there all night, and Frank tells Charlie that he wants to live with them. They negotiate all that. It's just tops. I enjoy everything about that scene, and it's basically the origin story for Charlie and Frank living together. Jamie G, favorite moment or scene?
Yeah, man. Well, if you guys are peeking behind on my screen here, if you're watching this, you can kind of see my background. Yeah, dude, I gotta get up for the mall race between Mac and Dennis, and then the fight, and just the epic scene of that fight as the actual handicap person, watches it from above, and D shows up to chime in. But yeah, that scene's hilarious, dude. I had to give it up for that.
I mean, I know Kevin Smith's been trying to crack Mallrats 2 for a while. What if it was Mallrats 2 Mall Race? And it's like
Mall
this
race.
handicapped race around the mall or something. I don't know.
Mac and Dennis doing things and going places like the mall, the suburbs, you name it. It's usually a win.
Yeah, give me Glenn Howerton in the Kevin Smith movie. I'm there for that. Soup, favorite scene or moment from Charlie Gets Crippled?
I'm gonna give it a short little scene here, man. I like the one where Mac and Dennis are just getting fucking shit faced before they decide to drive towards the end of the episode there to the strip club where it comes to a close. Yeah, that little interaction between the two of them, man, just
If I have to listen to you talk about this stupid, goddamn stuffed elephant anymore, I'm going to punch you in the neck.
Hey! Mr. Tibbs was not just some stupid stuffed element.
Yeah, great drunk acting, and they showed like how hammered they are. You got like red stripe, you have all the different bottles. Dennis is doing the shot, like yeah, that's like great drunk acting. That's top tier drunk acting right there.
Whatever, like I said earlier, the whole thing as a whole is fucking pretty solid. So it's hard to pick like a favorite part or whatever the fuck. But I'll go with that one as a mention. My vote.
Well, by hook or by crook, it is time for us to find out who our 5-star man or woman is for Charlie Gets Crippled. This is where we rank the characters in the episode on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, with first being the worst and 5 being the best. Mills, go ahead, buddy. Hand out your stars.
At the bottom, my 1-star person, I have to go with Mac. He loses both races, even though he tries to cheat in the second race. At number 2, I have to go with Dennis. He just have a good backstory and muscular legs, but he really doesn't make any progress here towards what he would want. At 3, I have to go with D. She almost pulled it off if she had not been walking in front of that club at the particular time her father got pushed out. She probably would have. Okay, well, I haven't really thought about what D would do when she was pretending to get crippled when it came time to sex, but we'll worry about that later. At number 4, I have Charlie. Dude, he gets a new BFF for life. He's got his red page for 6 months. He's flying pretty high. But number 5, my 5-star man, the absolute winner of the episode, has to be Frank Reynolds. I mean, as I come back, like Busta Rhymes, he's just in there. He loves this. He wants to just be a pig in the squalor and just roll around in the trough, and he's doing all of it. He's banging strippers. He's throwing money out. He's on the rascal. He's having a good time. Jamie G, give me your 5-star people.
Yeah, man. I don't do this often, but for my 1 star, I had to put Dennis there. And the reason why is because he loses probably the most here with his stuffed elephant. I mean, that's a one that you can't replace. And I think that really scars him. So I have Dennis down there. At my 2-star, I've got Mac. I mean, he had the idea of kind of being handicapped to gain, and kind of the rest of the group kind of runs wild with it. So I got to give Mac a little credit there. 3, I got D. I mean, she totally won at the mall. And I think she kind of won up Dennis here, and she doesn't normally do that. So shout out to D. And then for 4-star, I've got Charlie. I mean, this is the closest he gets to like chicks and being cool. And he gains his roommate and his best friend. And then, but 5-star, I also had to give it to Frank. I mean, the guy came into this, with terrible manic depression. He cures it, and he's figured out his path to happiness. And anybody who can do that, that's a 5-star man or woman.
Dude, give us your 5 stars.
1 star goes to fucking Mac, dude. I'm giving Mac the 1 star. I'm giving Dennis the 2 star. I'm giving the 3rd star, the 3 stars, giving those to Charlie. The 4 stars go to D, and the 5 stars go to Frank. No explanation needed. That's it.
All right.
I like that, man. It's like Marissa said, like this stripes on the sit and the stars come from the clubs or whatever. We're not trying to make move forever. We're just trying to create a self-sustaining economy. So what we do now is we break out our wallets and we hand out some fucking Patty's bucks to Charlie Gets Crippled. This is where we grade each episode of Sunny on a scale of 0 to 100 Patty's bucks, with 100 being the absolute number 1 best. Jamie G, lead us off here. How many Patty's bucks for Charlie Gets Crippled?
I am cracked into the 90s here, dude. I'm giving this one 91 Patty bucks. Hell of an episode. And you know what? That's a whole lot of Patty bucks to be stimulating your own economy.
I'm right there with you at 90. So yeah, I mean, I feel top third, about what, kind of we alluded to earlier. So Soup, how many Patty's bucks?
Man, I was really, really struggling, teetering the line on crossing the 80s into the 90s here, man. So I'm just going to give it a solid 90 on the money, man.
We all love that 90s shit, so there's nothing wrong with that. And for the record, from the outside, it might look like we're covering random episodes, but there is a method to the madness here. What we're trying to do is finally wrap up season 11, and next up is Frank Falls Out the Window. But because of the nature of that episode, we elected to cover Charlie Gets Crippled. And next, we're going to cover Dennis and D Go on Welfare before we cover Frank Falls Out the Window.
You heard the man. We'll be back to cover Dennis and D Go on Welfare. Thank you guys for checking out the Night Pod Cometh. We absolutely love doing these throwback episodes and hearing from other Sunny fans. So let us know, man. Hit us up if there's a particular episode that you want us to talk about. We'd gladly do it. All you got to do, super easy. All you got to do is go in the comments section of this YouTube video or on the social medias at Night Pod Cometh. That's at Night Pod Cometh. Anything else you want me to tell these fine people?
No, you actually did a really good job, man. Just search for us on the stuff again. Podcasts on YouTube at Night Pod Cometh, social media at Night Pod Cometh. You did it very well, sir. And like LL Cool J, this is the Night Pod Cometh, where we do it well, and do it again. I am Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. That's the Soupdeucer. Thanks again for checking us out and being a fighter for the Night Pod Cometh.
Oh! And if you're gonna cometh, man, make sure and cometh fucking hard, man. At night or in a pod, however the fuck you're comething.
You gotta save this boy's soul to get it. Gotta pay the troll toll to get into this boy's hole. Gotta pay the troll toll to get into this boy's hole.
Yeah, to get into this boy's hole, you have to, dude. It's
boy's soul, boy's hole.
This has been the Night Pod Cometh, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. We are in no way associated with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, 3 Arts Entertainment, RCG Productions, FXP, or FXX. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Any views or opinions expressed here are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations who may or may not be associated with the Joe Blow Football Show. If you have any questions, please contact us at nightpodcometh@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment.